What's up guys, my name is Ace, and so far with the Black Ops Cold War beta, most of my focus has been on the big picture stuff and trying to provide feedback on that big picture stuff, like the aiming issues that I covered in yesterday's video, or player visibility, or skill-based matchmaking, disbanding lobbies, all of those main points that it seems like most people in the community are really hitting on hard. And while this is great to see, and those are really important issues that definitely need some work, I feel like those big picture things often overshadow the little things, the little tweaks and fixes and additions that they could make to the game to improve the overall experience. So in today's video, that's what I wanted to focus on, more of the little things. Pretty much nothing on this list of feedback I have is game breaking or game changing by any means, but I do feel like with most of them, they're really easy fixes, they're really easy tweaks. And if you add them all up, I feel like they would significantly improve the overall experience. Now, just a heads up, this is going to be a pretty scrambled and all over the place sort of video. I've basically just been compiling this list as I've been playing. Anytime I notice just a little thing that feels a little bit off or I feel like there could be improvement, I've just been writing it down in my notebook and compiling this list. So it's going to be kind of a shotgun style video. And the first thing that I wanted to talk about here, this is actually something that is very important to me, but it also sort of falls into the little things here because I think it is an easy addition. But this is something that, in my opinion, is an absolute must-have that we currently don't have access to, and this is the ability to check your ping in-game. Now, while we do have the network indicators that pop up if you have high latency or packet loss or something, and that's nice to see, with any online first-person shooter, you really need to be able to see what your ping is to the host. There's no excuse for not having this in the full build of the game. Now, I'm hoping this is just a beta thing and they don't want to put that latency indicator there because they're tweaking things with the servers in the background and things might get a little crazy and they don't want people to see those fluctuations. I don't really know, but I'm hoping that's the case. We absolutely must have the ability to check our ping when the full build of the game comes. Even if they want to handle it like previous years where you have to pull up the start menu and tab over in order to see it, I don't care. There just has to be an option to check that. And anything less than that, I consider to be unacceptable. So yeah, that's the one thing in this video that's kind of the exception where I think this is a must-have. Now let's move into the other things on the list. And the next thing I've got on my list here is the grenade indicator. This is something that I feel needs some work. Currently, if somebody throws a frag near you, you get that red frag grenade indicator that pops up on your screen with a little arrow. And it's a very confusing indicator. Most of the time with Call of Duty, these are very intuitive. You can tell the direction that that frag is in relation to you, as well as how far away you are from that frag. And currently in the beta, it's just really confusing and not intuitive at all. And I often find myself running toward the grenade rather than away from it. I think I'm running away from it, but it turns out it was in the opposite direction from what I expected based on the indicator. So yeah, I really hope they end up cleaning that one up before launch. Going off of this, a lot of the throwables in this game are extremely bouncy. So like stun grenades, frag grenades, for instance, when you throw them at a wall or try and bank them off a corner or something, it's like they're made of rubber. They bounce so hard and it's just a really jarring sort of an experience. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel natural. And while it's something that you can adapt to and get used to, it just doesn't feel right. And I feel like it could use a little bit of tweaking. Sticking with this topic of the throwable equipment, another thing I've noticed is the grenade throwback speed is so painfully slow and it's basically a useless feature at this point. So somebody throws a grenade on the ground, a frag grenade, and you want to try and throw that back in time and you want to risk it and see if you can throw it back toward the enemy and maybe save yourself and your teammates. The length of time for that animation currently is so slow that even if they threw that grenade completely uncooked at you and you picked it up almost immediately, there's still a good chance you wouldn't be able to throw it back in time. It's just going to blow up in your hands. So this is something where I hope they can really significantly speed this up because as of right now, it is way too slow. Like it's not a little bit too slow, it is way too slow. So I really hope they significantly speed this animation up. Next up on my list is the Stim Shot. Now, I love the Stim Shot. I'm going to be using the Stim Shot a lot, but I also recognize the fact that in its current state, it just seems to be the obvious choice, and I know that if it stays the way it is currently, it's going to be 100% a crutch equipment for me. I'm going to be using it on all of my classes, and the simple reason for this is it replenishes itself fairly quickly, automatically, with no perks or anything required. And I think the main issue here is the speed at which you're able to replenish it. I'm not opposed to the idea of it replenishing itself automatically, But I think currently the recharge time on that is about 10 seconds, like give or take a second or two. And that's really fast. That means you can use a Stim Shot after most of your gunfights, depending on the pace of the game that you're playing. And by the time you finish your next gunfight and take some damage, you're ready to use one again. Whereas if you compare that to another throwable, like the stun grenade for instance, you throw that stun grenade and that's it. It's gone for the rest of your life. You don't get another stun grenade unless you're using a specific perk that will replenish your stun grenades. And don't get me wrong, I'm not pushing to have stun grenades automatically replenished. That would be terrible. I just think the recharge rate on the Stim Shot should be slowed down to maybe 15 or 20 seconds even. If it's going to do it automatically without a perk, I think it should be slowed down a noticeable amount. And again, I just want to reiterate here, this is coming from somebody that uses the Stim Shot a lot, and I love the Stim Shot. It's just not balanced currently. Moving on, the next thing that I hope gets tweaked a little bit is I hope they add a bit of a grace period if you change your class setup shortly after spawning. If you want to edit your class or switch to a different class, I think they need to add a grace period there. As long as you haven't shot or performed any actions or anything, you haven't thrown any grenades, it should allow any sort of class changes to apply shortly after a spawn. Basically exactly how Modern Warfare handles it currently. That's something that I think they absolutely nailed with the ability to edit your classes in the game. It gives you that little bit of grace period shortly after a respawn, so you don't have to wait until you die and respawn again in order to apply those changes. Next up, diving into the menus a little bit, I've seen a few people post about this, and I totally agree, so I just wanted to spread the message a bit. I would love to see the unlock levels next to all of the attachments when you're in the gunsmith menu. So you can see exactly what level you want to be aiming for in order to unlock that particular attachment that you want to get. Because as it is right now in the beta, at least, you don't see the unlock level, you just see whether it's locked or not. And you can see the order at which you're going to be unlocking the attachments, just not the exact levels. As for the next thing, this has to do with the heads-up display. I'd like to see the exact amount of score I need at any given time to earn each one of the streaks. So instead of just having that little bar that fills up over time as you get score, I'd like to know, do I need 200 score for this streak or is it 400 score? I don't know. You can't really tell the difference between the two with the bar system that they currently have, especially for the higher end streaks. I'd like to see that actual value, and I feel like this would help bring back some of that anticipation and excitement for earning a score streak a little bit. I don't think it'll fully bring that feeling back from the traditional score streak system, and I think that's one of the inherent flaws of the current score streak system that they're using in this game, but I don't anticipate that they're going to be completely dropping it, and therefore I feel like this is something that they could do to at least improve it slightly. On that same topic of score streaks, something I'd like to see is a slight adjustment to the artillery strike. As of right now in the beta, I do consider this to be one of the best bang for your buck sort of kill streaks as far as how many kills you'll be getting on average versus how expensive it is to earn score-wise. And it's also a very frustrating streak to die to because it feels like there's almost no counterplay to it. Yeah, you might hear the announcement before it goes off, but you don't know where that's being called in exactly. You can try and run for some cover, but you might end up running the wrong way and running into the artillery strike. So the one little adjustment I'd like to see is if an enemy player calls in an artillery strike, the moment they call that in, I'd like to see just a little ripple or something on the minimap that gives us a slight heads up as to where that artillery might be dropping, to at least give you a more realistic shot of trying to avoid that artillery strike. I still think the artillery would be quite powerful even with that little ping, but it would offer a little bit more counterplay at least, so it'd be less frustrating when you do end up dying to it. Now, moving on to the next thing, I really hope we end up getting the option to have a square minimap as well as the round minimap that we currently have. That was something that was added several months into the life cycle of Modern Warfare, it wasn't there at launch. And I think it was great that they added that, so for Cold War, I'd love to see it right at launch instead of maybe a few months down the road. Next, something I noticed that is missing, or it's just a change from what we're used to in Call of Duty, and I kinda wanna see it return. It's a really minor thing. This is a low ammo indicator, or a no ammo indicator, if you're holding a gun that's either low on ammo or doesn't have any ammo left in it at all. Now, normally this is something that pops up on the lower middle of your screen. It'll pop up prompting you to reload, or it'll pop up telling you you have no ammo in your gun, and it's pretty obvious and clear to see. As it is now in the Cold War beta, the only indicator you get is the ammo count on the bottom right will turn red when you get to the low ammo, and when you have no ammo, yes, it'll be a red 0 there, but there's nothing that actually shows up toward the middle of the screen that's letting you know, your gun is out of ammo. If you pull the trigger, nothing's gonna happen. And this is one of those little things where, sure, I'll get used to it. It's not that big of a deal, and I don't necessarily need that. I just feel like it would improve the user experience a little bit, especially for the newer players out there that aren't as good with noticing the little things like that. They need just that little extra prompt. Next up, getting into the field upgrades a little bit. The field mic, I feel, needs some adjustment. And really, at this point, my main issue is just the duration that it lasts for. The field mics last for an insanely long time. It seems like they'll last for pretty much a whole game if an enemy doesn't destroy it. And that just doesn't feel right at all. I think your previous field mic should be gone by the time you earn your next one in most cases. And yet, I'm often putting up 2 field mics at the same time. And that allows me to see a very good portion of the map. And at this point, I just think that duration is way too long. Moving on to the next thing, we're almost getting toward the end of this list that I've got here. This is something that I don't expect, but I'm still going to ask for it because I still would love to see this eventually happen. I would love to see the ability to skip the intro cinematic when you're booting up the game. This is something you can do with, I think, every single Infinity Ward Call of Duty game, but we've never been able to do it with Treyarch games. And if there's a technical reason for this, then I totally understand, and that's fine. Like, if it needs the time to load things up for that whole intro cinematic, then that's cool. But like I said, Infinity Ward games don't require you to do that, so maybe they've just got things optimized a little bit better there. But if there isn't a technical reason for this, and they just want to force us to look at the logos and everything at the beginning, can we please just have the option to skip that? I hate that with Treyarch games, that I constantly have to watch that same intro cinematic every single time I boot up the game. But finally, the last little thing I wanted to mention in today's video, this has to do with the Fireteam game mode. With this, the one little thing that kept getting on my nerves as I was playing is I feel like the fall damage is too high in that mode specifically. I think in regular multiplayer, the fall damage feels totally fine and normal, but in this Fireteam mode, I would like to see the fall damage toned down a bit. I am glad that it at least doesn't take armor off of your character, unlike Modern Warfare, but it just seems so unnecessary to take fall damage from dropping out of a second floor of a building, for instance, in a game mode that has such a fast pace like Fireteam Dirty Bomb so far does. So yeah, with that, that's pretty much it for the list that I've got so far of just a handful of little things that I would like to see changed or improved or added to the game. I'm sure I'm missing a few, and I could come up with more as time goes on, but those are the main things that stood out to me as I've been playing and things that I've jotted down. Of course, I'd like to know in the comment section below, what would you add to this list? What little minor things that aren't really game-breaking or game-changing would you like to see added, fixed, or changed in Black Ops Cold War? Again, we're not talking about the big picture stuff that we've been talking about in other videos and will continue to talk about in other videos because they're so important. We're just talking about those little details. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.